Right. Hello, real quick. YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I am live. Today is how to grow your podcast as a content creator. So, since we're talking about growth, that requires you to already have a podcast. If that's you, welcome. So, I decided that today I'm going to make it as clear as possible in terms of the points I'm covering. So here I took some notes. I wrote down 12 things, but before I went live, I already thought of like the 13th, the 14th thing. And I love this little like restream graphics here, as you can see. I love the little hat right there on my left or my right. That's our friend, well, with the blue background, that's my producer, Herman, and the dragon background with a hat over, that's Jorge Fuentes. So, all right. So, hey guys, talking about growing your podcast. I literally am so excited. I cannot wait to talk about this. It's not an easy endeavor. It doesn't matter, where you heard this from. If you're starting your podcast today or 6 months ago or a year ago, even years ago, like the way I did, it's not trivial. Even if you started early, there is definitely a lot more noise, a lot of competition in the market today. So you have to cut through that noise somehow. But number one, as of yesterday, I left this question for people who tuned in. If you didn't, that's okay. Think about this question first, which is get clear on what growth and opportunities mean to your podcast. Let me clarify. These days, I highly encourage people who already have a business to start their show because there's an opportunity for them to talk about themselves, their business, their services directly on their show. Maybe that's not your entire show, but there could be segments, pre-roll, mid-roll, where you actually talk about what you do. Before you go back to the show, you could use your company or part of your company or a project to sponsor your own show as an opportunity to talk about your current project. And so that could be very powerful. So today, all the tips I'm going to leave you with in the next 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, are going to be very practical. Perhaps some of the things you are already doing, and the other just me reassuring you that you're doing the right thing, you're on the right path. But there are also other ones maybe you haven't thought of, will be organic for you and your show. Get clear. For me, let me clarify. When I started my show called Feisworld in 2014, I want it to be an opportunity where I get to talk to really interesting people from all around the world. Many of them became my mentors and still are today. So that was my opportunity. I still don't want my show to be a place where I have to interview certain people. I'm doing it because I need to get paid. I'm relying on sponsorships. No, this is my place where I get to be myself completely. I get to choose who I talk to. So there's a difference. There's a really big distinction. Regardless, one of the things that are really, really important, as you're seeing on the screen, if you are not on Instagram right now, I'll repeat it, which is consistency really matters. At the beginning, I struggled. Do I regret that I started the show without having 10 episodes in the bag? Absolutely not. Because I noticed that when you're thinking or you're kind of threatened by consistency from the very beginning, you tend to not want to do that thing. I'm doing this 30-day live. I've gone live 30 days. Well, not 30 days in a row just yet. Today is the 11th day. I'm learning a lot, but also because I am more familiar and I'm more kind of an experienced content creator. I know what it takes. It's not trivial. So when you think about consistency, think about that maybe a habit you need to build over time. Sure, it's a good idea to have 5-10 episodes in the bag before you launch your show. But even if you've lost consistency, maybe in this moment right now, don't beat yourself up. Re-examine that situation, trying to find help, people, resources to put yourself back on track. Because that voice keep talking at you to say that you're being inconsistent, you don't know who your audience is, you don't know what you're doing. That is not helpful. And guess what? There are a lot of content creators who cannot pinpoint that one avatar, that one audience that they're talking to. So consistency matters, but remember, it is a work in progress for a lot of people. So don't blame yourself too much. Now, tip number 2, we started with 0. Tip number 2, connect with your listeners. What I mean by that is, have an opportunity to say, hey guys, draw me an email. It's super simple. You don't have to create a very sophisticated community. You don't necessarily have to start your own Facebook group just yet, even though they could be a good idea. is that you find a way that you proactively encourage your listeners to connect with you via whichever channel that they're comfortable with. So for me, I've seen tweets. I'm not very active on Twitter, but I've seen tweets. I've seen Facebook comments after I've shared the episode. Also, a lot of people ask me, like, Faye, can I like share my podcast episode on Facebook? Hell yeah. Share with your family, with your friends. They don't have to listen to it if it's not for them. That's how we are all getting started. I don't know why we're so hesitant to share that. But I also think it's a good idea to build a page because your Facebook page, your own identity, your own brand allows you to connect with other brands directly from a with a brand's voice as opposed to a personal voice. Also, there are benefits in terms of running ads, and there are a lot of business tools and functionalities you get to use once you establish your business account, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or elsewhere, including LinkedIn, having your own LinkedIn company page. So connect with your listeners. Every episode, ask them, and don't wait till the end, guys. Like, I realize that we neglected the opportunity up front before you even lean into your solo episode, your interview episode. Say hi to your listeners. I recently learned from a content creator who actually reads some of the reviews and feedback live on their show, where at the very beginning, they will give their listeners a shout out to their Instagram handle. People love that engagement. Remember, not everybody wants to create or is creating at the moment. If they feel like there's an opportunity that they're co-creating with you, that's even better. So that leads to tip number 3, ask for feedback and reviews. It's one thing to say, hey, what did you, share any thoughts with me? I would love to, get in touch with you. And there's the other where you can directly ask for feedback. So what can you talk about? Hey guys, I'm new to podcasting. Remember the power of vulnerability. Like, I'm new to this. Please share your thoughts on which episodes you like the most. If something that you're teaching, ask them, did you find any of this helpful? If so, please let me know which part of it so you could do more of that. Also, if you have an interview format podcast, you can say, oh, you liked this type of guests? Let me go find more just like him, like her. And who else would you like to hear from? In fact, I kind of exercised that pretty earlier on, and people realize that I may have just a little bit more access than they do. And I really utilize that opportunity. If somebody wants to hear from someone, hey, speaking of which, guys, I am going to invite, it's already been confirmed, Mark Bowden, who is a worldwide body language Zoom expert, how to present virtually as well as in person. And I'm going to interview him at 3 p.m. on Monday. It's part of our 30-day live. I'm super excited. Right? So I've sought feedback. I know what my listeners, watchers, viewers, subscribers want to hear from. So that, make sure you ask for reviews. And even better, I think one of the things I learned earlier on is ask people to leave reviews on Apple reviews, Google reviews, whatever you prefer, right? I think Apple Podcasts is still quite important. A lot of people don't realize how important it is to leave reviews. There's star review options. You literally leave a star, or you can leave a comment, which can be very, very powerful. And remember that some listeners don't know how to do that or do that easily. You can create a page, a dedicated page, instructions for how to leave feedback on your website. And as part of your show notes, as part of your show descriptions, wherever they are, just tell them, hey, flip over to the description. We'll give you instructions on exactly how to leave feedback. It will only take 5 minutes. All right. Think outside of the box and get funky with your approach. This area, I think it's really important when it comes to growing your podcast. Again, you don't have to wait for advertisers. You don't have to wait for sponsors. You do not have to wait until you have 10, 20,000 downloads. You can proactively connect with brands, people, even local businesses directly. I have come across a number of local businesses, local podcasts focus on local businesses. And I don't have the list with me, but if you guys want to, I'll be sure to share in the comments after. And I absolutely love and admire that. So for instance, one of my friends and colleagues has a podcast called Women of Wayland, as in Wayland in Massachusetts. She has been working with local businesses, including salons, and was able to get their reviews and get them ad spots. And that is super smart. When your podcast content and your podcast audience is more localized, there's a unique opportunity for you to target a variety of local businesses. It doesn't have to all be salons. It doesn't have to be all video audio companies. It could be anybody. It could be a sandwich shop. So yeah, it's very, very powerful. Another way to think outside of the box to get paid is think about, once again, how do you share your own services and products on your podcast? So that actually leads into, for instance, tip number 5. When I started a group called the Creative Entrepreneurs, which is also in the as a link in the description, I started that group in 2017. It's still a very small, intimate group. There are fewer than 200 of us, and a subset of us meet once a month as well to talk about our creative journey. What I have came to realize right around that time, even in 2017, 18, is very few of the podcasters were talking about themselves and their work on their shows. Before you have all these sponsorship spots, realize that if you have something to offer and to sell, it's absolutely legitimate for you to talk about it. So take an opportunity to say, hey, today I'm interviewing, let's say, Mark Bowden. And this episode is brought to you by Feisworld Media or Feisworld Academy. And literally that is the case, right? It is my working and incomes from other streams of my business to be able to kind of fuel and support the stuff I'm doing right now, this live stream. If it wasn't for support from that side of my business, I won't be able to do this for free. And remember that you can absolutely talk about it, exercise it. Look, it's a platform that you created to help other people. Why shouldn't you make this part of your own business? So next, let's talk about tip number 6, empower guests. Make it easier for them to share. As a podcaster, I'm all for having a virtual assistant. It goes a long way with many O's in that word long. Really, if someone can then just take, whatever it is, the thumbnails, the assets, the link, little blurb verbiage that you can pre-announce your episode on social media, but it's not just for you, it's there for your guest as well, right? And somebody can basically prepare that ahead of time with your guest, maybe Twitter handle, tagging your guest on LinkedIn. It's super powerful, but it is work, guys. As a content creator, as a podcaster, you should be focusing on things that's going to be hard for other people to do for you, or something that you enjoy doing. Like for me, I love outreaching to guests. I actually, my podcaster friend Jordan Harbinger said the exact same thing. He loves doing outreach. It's a ton of work. You send 10 emails and you don't even hear back from all of them. Some people would say no, but I love the fact that I want my guests or potential guests and prospects to hear directly from me, to schedule meetings with me and all that. I don't want a virtual assistant to replace me for that type of work. But for instance, after a podcast has gone live, I often have the excitement at the beginning to share it with my podcast guests. But you could also outsource that part where you can ask your virtual assistant to prepare an email. And if you're using Gmail, by the way, Gmail, or I use Superhuman, I can actually pre-design these email templates. So I don't have to rewrite them like over and over again. In that email for my guests, I say, hey, here's the link. Here's an embed code. Here's an iframe code that you can actually include on your blog. Here's a thumbnail. Let's keep going here. You can also have audiograms using Descript, a headliner. So whatever you want to produce, maybe clips, whether it's just an audiogram, maybe it's video clips, you can put all that together in a Dropbox folder and just ask your virtual assistant to send it to your guest. And that's it. You can even have a follow-up. If people don't check their emails very frequently, you can do that. And here's what I love, because I also do a lot of the work for my guests, for my clients. Once you share this package with your podcast guest might also have his or her VA who is able to then just take it from there and then share it on their social media channels. All of a sudden, your reach just doubled and tripled, because from there, maybe some of their listeners will continue to share the episode. So these are all growth techniques. Let's talk about some of the things that you could potentially get for your podcast. At the beginning, I was literally like talking to people like, yep, don't talk to me about new ideas. It's just me. It's just Faye is the only person for Feisworld podcast. Literally, I'm going to blow up if you guys want to share more ideas. I don't need another idea. But as you grow, when you have assistants, you can go ahead and get transcripts. There are several things I listed on the screen. Otter.al, Sonix.al, Happyscribe, podcastle.ai. All of these apps allow you to get transcripts, guys. You may be wondering, Faye, well, what's the point of getting a transcript? First of all, Google has been indexing your podcast since exactly, I think, around like July, August 2018. I know this because that year I did something I never done before. I went to podcast movement, and Joanna Penn, a colleague and friend of mine, check her out. She is one of the most established, brilliant self-publishing author and educator. And so Joanna is based in the UK, and we decided we're all both going to go to podcast movement. That was my only time. There, I learned a lot of things. That was when Descript was born, first of all. They had this tiny little booth, and now they're like, I don't know, multi-million dollar company. I also learned at the Google booth at that time that, Google was already transcribing, was learning all your content from an audio perspective. But that doesn't mean that you have access to that transcript. So it's still today a really good idea to get transcripts. You may be thinking like, oh my God, Faye, I cannot even bear the thought of having to go through 10,000 words. That's right. If you talk even a little bit slower than I do right now, within 1 hour, you and your guest going to generate close to 10,000 words. I know you don't want to look through all of that for mistakes. What you can do is either by yourself or with your VA, go through the beginning and the end of that transcript, make sure your names or any technical terms, if if it's medicine or tech related podcast, you might want to just double check on those words because names and proper nouns are often misspelled. That's it. There are some of these apps here actually allows you to have a dictionary, build your own dictionary. Anyway, the point is there's a way to get it done. From there, even as an embed, now Google is not only able to more properly index your audio and provide their own transcriptions, but it's able to really index your content and make it available to your listeners as well. There's another resource I want to talk about is Listen Note. Is it Listen Notes? Listen Note. And it's a podcast database. And I actually interviewed the CEO way back when. And it's a great place for you to be able to search for, instead of just listening to Feisworld, but if you want to see, like, let's say all the episodes where Krista Tippett is no longer the host, but an interview guest, well, that's a great place. Go to Listen Notes, check it out. Just make your content as searchable as possible. And I think transcriptions is something that I wish I started at the very beginning, but I don't regret it. As soon as I had a VA, I had Rose to go backwards and just start trying to, update as much transcripts as possible. And all the new podcasts I am now supporting, including Enable Disable podcast, has transcripts fully loaded up since the very beginning. All right. Seems like I had too much passion for that particular topic. On to tip number 8, create audiograms. I mentioned that briefly just now, Descript headliner, but now I'm going to give you the why as to you want these audiograms or video clips. There's a situation with a lot of us podcasters crying in our private time, thinking like, oh, there's nobody listening, there are no downloads. And it's true, it's painful after you put in all that work. What some of you guys don't know is that scheduling process with somebody like especially from tier 1 or 2, there are a lot of outages. And by the time you put somebody on the show, you're like, oh my God, I'm utterly exhausted. And so having these audiograms will create these opportunities where people don't have to listen to the entire show. They only have to listen to the segments. I'm in conversations with several companies right now who are trying to do AI, like using artificial intelligence to identify the most engaging bits and pieces of the episode. It's not always easy, and it's certainly not perfect right now. But from your perspective, we're working with a virtual assistant. You certainly can identify or take out, distill 3 to 5 clips where you think are the most revealing. Like, for instance, I can already pre-think, like thinking ahead of my episode with Mark Bowden on Monday. There are going to be segments where I want him to talk about Zoom best practices. I want him to talk about, nonverbal body language. And I want him to talk about the fact that he was naked and ran in front of 60,000 people, in front of 60,000 people running around like the stadium. And so all those things, I think those can be very captivating. Remember, don't underestimate your knowledge when it comes to content. If something does capture your attention, chances are it's going to really captivate other people as well. So, hello, Sam. Welcome back. Really, really grateful that you're here with us. I know you're a regular here. I really appreciate it. So, creating, all these clips and all that, just again, give people a flavor of what you're about, right? That's right. You got to give people the reason as to why they should listen. And trust me, I actually know several podcasters who simply share these like 30-second, 1-minute audiograms, and people fell in love with their show. And as a result, subscribe and start listening to dozens, hundreds of episodes. So, yeah, start. And that tip number 9, I think you saw this coming, which is start a YouTube channel. I'm a firm believer that a lot of content creators, especially podcasters, should start their YouTube channel. Should you replicate exactly what you have on the show? Maybe, maybe not. But even if you feel lazy in this moment, like today, really to start your YouTube channel. If you're not sure what you're doing, please drop me a note, an email, leave me a message on social media, or send me an email at hello@feisworld.com. I'm currently working with Lynn at Dawn Media Productions. We're working with podcasters and teaching them, coaching them through how to repurpose their content onto different platforms. I really think, YouTube, live stream, and podcasts are basically they're what do you call that, like they're just perfect for each other, and they really create that ecosystem, create that feedback loop to further propel your content forward. So YouTube is great for video clips, but yes, it's true, the quality of the podcast should be there. Also, obviously, you have to record videos, guys. Please record videos, even if you're not going to use the video content. Okay. Right away. You don't know, Faye, I don't know what I should do with a video. That's okay. But have the video recorded anyway. You're going to thank yourself when you start your YouTube channel. There may be clips you can use. And also, YouTube right now is promoting shorts, like a type of content under 1 minute, like crazy. YouTube just announced $100 million to as grants and to award shorts creators. And why are they doing this? Yeah, duh, they're competing with TikTok. So if you open up YouTube right now, there are going to be a lot of shorts, perfectly vertical form, some with music, some not. But I'm telling you, if you're able to repurpose some of your podcasts right now, either as short videos, could be over a minute, but some of them maybe as snippets, as shorts on YouTube, you can all of a sudden expose your content to a whole new audience here. And one more thing I forgot on the note of YouTube. Remember that, like, currently I'm a premium YouTube user. I just got sick and tired of ads as of a year ago and indulging it with my whole family on YouTube these days. And there's some questions here. Awesome. Yay. Super, super glad. Thank you guys so much. And so definitely make sure you record videos. YouTube Shorts are fantastic to experiment. Fun Tokyo, can audio only podcasts be successful? Yes, of course. And one of my clients recently asked me, "Oh, Faye, I know you're into video podcasts. Does it mean the audio podcast is dead?" It's not. And what I just almost forgot to say is, as a premium YouTube user, now I'm able to watch and listen to videos with my screen either turned on or off, which means if my phone screen is, it basically locked, if my screen is locked, I can still hear what's going on YouTube. A lot of premium users are actually doing that. And so I highly encourage you to try the same. So yes, audio podcast is definitely here to stay. There's still a lot of people who prefer even audio or not even thinking in terms of video podcast. I'm only recommending that if you're currently recording, be sure to record video before you regret it. All right. Tip number 10, start learning about sponsorships and know it's not your only way to monetize your show. Lately, as of today, I started looking into Podcorn. I signed up for an account actually months ago. I just didn't feel like it. I looked through the sponsorships. I didn't feel like it was necessarily a right match, so I didn't look further. But my friend Helena Escalante reminded me once again that I should look into it for Feisworld and Unable Disabled podcast. I said, what the heck? Let me just go ahead and take a look. So not only that, I have an upcoming video to show you step by step how to navigate from within Podcorn. So not popcorn, but Podcorn. So definitely check it out. I would say, knowing that this is sponsorship advertising is a potential opportunity and certainly isn't the only one. Start looking into these platforms. Just sign up to see how you like it, to see the sponsors are out there, how much they charge, and maybe even apply to a few sponsorship positions and just learn from there. And tip number 11. I waited this long to say this because, once again, I don't want people to think that audio podcast is somehow like over. But starting in 2020, I decided I was going to go live with all my podcast recordings. And it was just, timing wise, it was really, I'm really grateful I did that because of the pandemic. A lot of people are so comfortable on Zoom. Frankly, when I was podcasting, years ago before COVID, I had to convince a number of guests to even be camera ready. I mean, they are camera ready, but some of them even very upfront just push back on, I don't want you to record video. That has changed completely, guys. Since 2020, I have not had a single person who said, number one, not a single person said they don't want to be on video. Number two, everybody was comfortable with live stream. And I was really shocked about that shift. So take advantage of that shift and encourage your guests to record videos. And from there, live stream, guys. I feel like this is my little secret weapon. Not so secret anymore because I talk about it on my YouTube channel all the time. Live stream is so powerful. Here's the thing. I am a small content creator. I have a small platform, relatively speaking. When I start going live with my interviews, frankly, the numbers are not that big on YouTube. For instance, on average on YouTube, after I go live, there may be 30, 50 views. So not a whole lot, but the views continue to accumulate after I've gone live because live can be replayed. Same thing on Facebook, my personal channel, my company channel. I go live with my content. Same thing with LinkedIn. I know some of you guys are still struggling with getting live stream approved. Just keep applying because LinkedIn finally, I think after 3 months approved my live stream. And that's why you guys are able to watch me on LinkedIn right now. But just be patient, get on live stream. And then when you look at the accumulated views of your live stream podcast, I would say for many of you, you might see 100, 300 before you repurpose your live stream to be audio podcast. That's exactly what I do now. Is I have been doing this for nearly 2 years. I go live on the channel, so I immediately get 200-300 views, and people engage with me, engage with us. And I tell my guests, don't worry about the live comments. I'll be able to just relay that back to you. So it's not a distraction to them. And I go live exclusively using Restream, which is the same system you're witnessing right now. And after that, immediately after that, I do a very light edit and just repurpose the audio portion back on my hosting channel, Anchor. And from there, guess what? It goes to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the other channels. I think I'm on Player FM, I'm on Overcast, like 18, 20 different platforms. And it's amazing. Why did I decided to go live? Because Herman, my producer, and I found ourselves to be getting increasingly busier during the pandemic. And we have so many ideas we want to execute on. I said, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I over editing the shows? Like people like the live, the raw, authentic engagement. And all my guests are incredible speakers. I don't need to over edit. So I just quickly, easily repurpose all the content. And I have to say, since then, basically triple my views and put my content out there in a much more timely basis. So please consider live streaming. It's really fun. Okay, lastly, I mentioned really quickly like podcast movement. This is not a sponsored segment, but I gotta say, like for a long time, I avoided going to events, especially at the beginning. I would just think I'm really having fun doing this. I don't want to spend $500, $1,000 for the tickets, and then I have to basically drive somewhere, or more often than not, fly somewhere. And especially given COVID, it didn't feel feasible at all. And I don't recommend anybody travel if you're uncomfortable doing so. But in 2018, before COVID, I traveled to Podcast Movement, and I have some just quick tips to share with you guys. It's a great event if you can travel with someone. Who is that someone? Could be your producer, could be people working on your podcast, could be fellow podcasters you've established a relationship with. Maybe through a mastermind, you don't have to even live in the same city. You have a goal and you travel together. That is so helpful because by the time you get to these events such as Podcast Movement, they have these parallel events going on for like 3 to 5 days for the entire week. So thank goodness, for instance, like Joanna Penn and I had a strategy where she will go to one event and I'll go to the other all within the same hour. Then during lunch break, we'll basically regroup and we share notes. We even like target different booths. They're like, let's go visit Descript. Actually, Descript was brought to my attention through Joanna Penn, and I trust her so much. And I couldn't believe I was able to learn so quickly. So since 2018, after I came back, straight back from Podcast Movement, I reach out to Descript right away. I got this like private demo. I was able to like offer product feedback. I don't know how much of that they really took in, but it was such a great way to beta test, to learn, what the trends are. So it was really interesting. I frankly, just my personal opinion, I wouldn't spend thousands of dollars to keep going back to podcast event, but it's a great place for me to personally, I met Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, and I met Jordan Harbinger in person for the first time, and a bunch of other very prolific, frankly, like creators I never heard of, but to be there with them in person, you get to, shake their hands and not take pictures. Those are always fun, but to meet fellow creators. And I also remember Patreon was there, for instance, and Patreon was teaching podcaster like when is it going to be, when is it too early to start your own account. And it was really interesting. I still remember the answer to say, oh, you should probably, and you don't have to wait until you have 10,000 downloads, but maybe something like starting with 1,000. Obviously these data came from 3-4 years ago, but it was very relevant in terms of, instead of guessing, you can actually have these conversations with creators as well as with brands. So I learned a ton. So those are my 12, really 13 tips. All of that I hope you find helpful. If you miss any of this, please feel free to, the live stream is here to stay. Whichever platform you're on right now, you can replay that. I would always say, please get clear on what growth and opportunities mean to you and your podcast. So have fun doing so. Remember, I think the number one rule as a content creator to play the long game is that you have to genuinely enjoy what you're doing. I am utterly obsessed with, talking to people, interviewing them, being a good listener. And I created a whiteboard. It's not in my office right now. So funny. Yesterday, my friend Ace was in my office. Like, we're talking about all these gadgets and all that. But he's like, Faye, what's missing behind you or in your office is this like crazy whiteboard where you share your ideas. And I realize it can get a little bit strange, right? I'm going live. Who knows who's going to end up watching this? And I have all these different sticky notes and ideas on the board. But one of the things I did is I did buy a board for my bedroom. And I love, and please go through this exercise if this interests you at all. I wrote down on my whiteboard, it could be a piece of paper on the left-hand side, all the things that I'm currently doing and where I like to do. And in the middle column, I want to honestly ask myself, like, how much do I really enjoy doing that? I think this is a good video idea. I think I have to do it. How much do I enjoy doing it? I remember writing down live stream. So next to live stream, podcast interviews, and online content creation, and doing everything for Feisworld Academy. I did include a link below, like creating videos, tutorials, spreadsheets. I'm such a spreadsheet junkie. I just love it so much to create these templates, put it out there. I love it so much. I can do it literally for free. Things that you would do even for free are things that are really important, and you cannot neglect that. And I want to just share, like, my mom is turning 70 next year, and she's retired for a little while now. As an artist, she's now creating, at the age of 70, she's creating a massive collection called Chinese Empresses. She really believes, in addition to the emperor stories, very few of these empresses stories were ever shared. And she want to create that. And so I look at her, I literally had this conversation with her to say, Mom, these are, museum pieces like you see behind me. Those empress paintings are like 4 to 8 times of each of the paintings behind me at the moment, if you can see any shape of this. And museum paintings means that they're going to be hard to sell. And the idea isn't about selling. So she's like, well, it's not about selling. No, we're not thinking about necessarily museums. She feels the need, the urge to have to create that. And that's fascinating to me. If something that takes you a lot of effort and work and all that passion, you have to create it regardless of the guaranteed or the expected income, you might have to think about it. Maybe it's really, really important. And I know this whole series is about content creators because I truly believe, I never told anybody to quit your job and pursue your passion, the money will follow. That is horrible advice, because we become very different people when we have, we have no shelter, we're hungry, things change very quickly. I highly recommend, if something is so important to you, such as podcasting, creating content, teaching, do it on the side first. Start experimenting, exploring, having a conversation with your family about why it's really important to you. And then, maybe keep your full-time job, maybe find a way to freelance a little bit more, and maybe find a way to not work full-time, but part-time, but something that can start to drive in, to provide an income before you can fully and truly pursue this this passion that you have. Because frankly, I think I will be a very cranky and ugly creator if I know that my livelihood is utterly dependent on my YouTube videos and my podcasts. No, I don't think I could think straight. So it's been such a wonderful time. I had so much fun. Please let me know if this format works for you guys. I mean, does it work for me to talk more openly? Does it work better if I have these, captions on screen like this, like this? It's what's helpful? What other tips and tricks do you want to hear? Do you want to learn? But please, if you're here Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mark Bowden's going to be joining me. I'm so excited, and give a personal shout out to Michael Leckie for introducing me to Mark. I've known Mark's work for so long, and someone I look up to and absolutely admire. And he'll be part of our live stream on Monday. And anything else you guys want to learn, please do not hesitate to ask. With that said, well, today is what? Day 11. And day 12 is how to repurpose content. That's what tomorrow is about. I'm going to dive in and drill in deep on how to repurpose your content, whether it's video or audio or your Zoom recordings, guys. That's how you get yourself out there. So with that said, goodbye, Instagram. Thank you so much for everyone who stopped by. Leave me any questions about this session or any of the previous sessions. Oh, my finger looks so big. I didn't realize. I got to turn it off. I always have to basically stop live on Instagram first. And yeah, all right. Thank you for your feedback and your reviews. As always, I'll see you tomorrow at the exact same time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard, noon PST, right? That's it. Bye. Love to this community.